Hello everyone, today we're going to be taking a look at creating a custom context menu. Now, if you are not familiar with what a context menu is, it is your right click. So when you right click on something, you get a whole bunch of options. Now you've probably seen this in something like your email account. Let's say you log into like Gmail, you right click somewhere and you don't get the standard right click. If you right click on an email, you might be able to mark it as read or send it to trash or whatever. So in this case, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking the basic CRUD actions, create, read, update, and destroy. We're going to add those links into a custom context menu. We'll add little icons with a little animation here so that we can create, read, update, or destroy a to-do just like you normally would. Now this is like part one of this. So in here, these are all just going to be direct links. So let's say I right click on this Sequoia one, I click show, it takes me to the Sequoia page. If I right click and I say, let's edit this, it'll take me to the edit page. These aren't inline actions. You could do that with Turbo and Stimulus, but here we're specifically just focusing on making this stuff work. Of course, we also have another option here, which just goes nowhere to show you that we are closing the context menu when we need to. If you don't set this up properly, you can end up in the situation where this just stays here as you run around and you click off. But the way this is set up, if I zoom in enough, you can see we can right click, we can scroll down, it'll disappear. If we right click near the bottom, it'll move up. If we right click near like the right edge, it won't overlap there. Similarly, the left edge, it can't overlap, and the top, it can't overlap. We also filter the actions if you right click up here in the top of the table, because you might click up here in title thinking you can right click to do a new to do, and that'll still let you do that. But if you right click over here, your context menu disappears. So this is specifically for your tables, and we're making sure to try and filter it. Now I did throw this together in the span of like 40 minutes, so there may be some oversights here. So I do apologize if I'm missing something, but hopefully this will be enough for you to get started. We're going to go ahead, we're going to do a Rails new video project, and for this we're going to do a -J of ES build, a -C of bootstrap, and then we'll go ahead and we'll cd into this video, and then we'll go ahead and we'll run a code dot. Now we're using ES build and bootstrap mostly because I like the right click menu looking a little bit cleaner. I like the table look from bootstrap. It's not really necessary for this tutorial, but it does also allow us to use bootstrap icons, which is what we're going to be using here for those icons. So what we're going to do now is move this folder over, and then we'll go ahead and we'll get started. So the first thing we have to do is generate our scaffold for our to-dos. We'll say Rails G scaffold, and I can just hit the up arrow. We're creating a to-do with a title of type string, a description of type text, and a done of type Boolean, which is just your completed check mark. Go ahead and run that. Next, we'll do a Rails G stimulus, and we'll create the context menu stimulus controller. Finally, we need to add our bundle add faker gem for some seeded data. That's just so that we have some data here, like with the lorem ipsum text. And I said finally, but we still have to do one other thing, which is that yarn add for the bootstrap -icons. That'll go ahead and add that. Now in my case, because of how I run my tutorials, I also need to do a gem install foreman, but you don't have to worry about that step. That just allows me to run bin/dev, but you should be able to run it without needing to do that. So at this point, we can go ahead and run bin/dev, come over here and we'll refresh, and this should work just fine. It'll take us to a migrations page. We can click the run pending migrations. This will take us to a new page. Looks good to me. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's actually be a bit organized here. We'll do a git add dot, git commit -m, and we'll say init commit, just like that, just so we have a checkpoint here. Now that we have that, let's come into our config in our routes.rb. I am going to be cruising through some of the basic stuff that you've probably seen 100 times before. So right here, we're just going to route to the to-dos index page. Next, we're going to come into app, views, to-dos, and we'll come into the to-dos index page. Now in here, there's a couple things that we want to do again. First thing is we want to set up our stimulus controller. So we'll have this to-dos header right here, but above it we'll create a data-controller to bind the context-menu. It's important to note it is the context_menu_controller.js file, but because they like using kebab case over here, we have to use kebab case for this context_menu. So it's still the same pattern here, but because we have an underscore, we have to separate it with a kebab case here. Really cringe, I know, can't be helped though. So we have this container right here. At the bottom here, we'll go ahead and we'll just close this div. Now we're going to get rid of this new to-do link, And instead of iterating through the to-dos like this, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to create a table. This is going to be a little bootstrap table, has an ID of to-do-table, a data-action of context menu, which is the name of our controller. But here we can just do context menu. It's going to have a data-action of context menu. This is the context menu when you right click the actual keyword. So when you do the context menu action, we want to call the context-menu controller open action. It's confusing, I know. In retrospect, I probably should have named this something differently, but that's just the consequence of my actions. We're going to give it a class of table and table-striped, which is just what's going to give us that cool little striped table look. Then we'll go ahead and we'll close this at the bottom here. After we have that, we now need to create the very basic setup for our tables. So again, it usually has a TR with a title, description, done, and a column span here. Optionally, you can also have like a TH for the ID if you want to, but it's kind of really not necessary. So we'll just leave it like this with the TRs. After that, we're going to come down here and we're going to create the T body right below the T head. So we'll just say T body. I'll hit escape and then hit tab. There we go. Now we want to iterate through our to-dos. So we'll come in here, we'll say for each of these to-dos, do some stuff. Now in this case, you could abstract this out to a to-do partial and render the to-do. This will really depend on your taste. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to paste this in and then we'll talk about it. So what I mean by taste is in this case, because you can right click show to-do and go to the show page, I'm leaving the regular to-do partial here. You could also take this into like a to-do row partial, right? Just rename it, put it in there, and then render it in here. In this case, I'm going to leave it in the index page, even though it's a little bit messier, just so it's clearer what we're doing. We do give the TR a data-to-do ID of to-do.id because we do some selection of this. Then we do, I think this is for the like right click show, edit, or destroy actions is where I use this. But you probably don't need to do this. You could instead use stimulus here. That's something that could be cleaned up. But again, I do this in like 40 minutes each day. Then we have our TDs, which are self-explanatory. We have our links right here. These you could, of course, omit if you want to, because you do have all of these in your context menu. After we do all of that at the bottom then, I have one extra div here, it looks like. So let's go ahead and let's get rid of this div. At the bottom here, we need to render our to-dos context menu. So we'll come right below the table and we'll render this context menu with to-dos / context menu. So we'll come over to to-dos, right click, new file, _ context _ menu.html.erb. Inside of this context menu, we need to create a div with an ID of context-menu. Go ahead and hit tab. And for this div, we also need to give it some data and a class. We're going to give it data-context-menu-target of menu and a class of hidden. We'll take a look at some of the CSS in a minute here. For the links in here, it's pretty standard stuff. We just say this has a create link. So this is how you create the to-do. We then just say this is a link to new to-do path with a do block so that we can put in the icon and then the word after it. We can then go ahead and do something similar to read, update, and destroy a to-do. I'm actually going to change this to destroy just so it's clear that we have the CRUD actions here of create, read, update, destroy. Finally, we'll include that inactive link at the bottom here. Now, for the edit option, for the show option, it's going to be kind of similar, but we add a little bit extra. We give it a link to, we just stub out the link because we don't need this to actually go anywhere. We then give it some data, which is the context _ menu _ target of show link. So we're using stimulus targets here. We then once again include a icon and the words. For all of these icons with Bootstrap icons, I just come over here and I just, like you can see here what I was searching for before. It's not the most intelligent looking search, but I just look for the word look and I hope it comes back with something. So it came back with a magnifying glass. So that's why I used the search icon here because I was like, sure, that makes sense. Similarly, for like the new button, I just looked for plus and I found like the plus square, et cetera, et cetera. Just use some semblance of creativity and you'll be fine. But okay, that gives us our show, which we'll put under read. For the update, that's just an edit link. It's going to look very similar. In fact, I think I just copied the edit link for the show link. So this is pretty much the same, and I changed this to a pencil square. For the delete, it does require a little bit extra. Some of this is, no, this should still be fine. It's a stubbed out link with some data, another context menu target, just like the other two. But then we give it the confirm, and we do give it a turbo underscore method colon delete because we're using turbo and Rails 7, so we need to make sure that this knows it's a delete method. We then say this is a delete to do. We then say this is a delete to do button. Finally, under the inactive link, oops, that's not right. Under the inactive link, we include a link to a blank, or you can stub this out, a class of bi question square, which is just that question mark, and this just goes nowhere, and this is just for testing. So we can do all of this, come over here and run a bin/dev, and then refresh this page, and hopefully nothing will happen. We can see right here, this appears, it's not appearing in a context menu. So that's what I mean by like nothing happens. We've just created some links that are being rendered to the page, and we've given this a class of hidden, although the class of hidden doesn't actually exist. So now let's take care of the CSS real quick so we can actually have that exist. And this is pretty standard. The hidden class we'll just do first. It's just a display of none with important because I'm lazy. Now for the context menu itself, I do style it a bit. Which is just this context menu styling. So for this, we just position it, give it a z-index, give it a background. Pretty standard stuff. Z-index makes it on top of everything. For the border, we just give it a slightly fainter color that looks like it could be a slight shadow. We give it a display and flex direction so that it displays, you know, in those neat little rows. Box shadow just makes it have that outline around it. And then for the links themselves, we style those so that they look cool. We give them a transition and a hover for the background. That's our CSS. I'm not going to go into it too much. It's really not that interesting. But now that we have all of this set up, we can come into our JavaScript and our controllers and our context menu controller. And this is where the bulk of the video is going to happen. I am going to be moving through this pretty quickly, but hopefully you'll forgive me for that. Oh, sorry. But let's come over here and refresh, and we can now see our links disappear. So that's good. That's working. All right. So first thing we want to do, we have to set up our static list of targets. We're going to come in here and we're going to add a static list of targets for the menu, edit link, delete link, show link. Now, all of these are going to be coming from various areas. Here's your menu, show, edit, delete. You get the idea. So that's where those are coming from. In the connect method, we're going to replace this with a different connect method. So this is called when the controller is connected. We have to bind the hide menu option, which is going to hide the context menu. This is how we toggle it. We add this to both our click when we left click and our scroll. It's going to fire a lot, but this allows us to ensure that we hide it when appropriate. For disconnecting, we want to also remove these listeners. So we're going to go ahead and remove the event listener as well. That'll take care of that. Now, when we go to open a context menu, it's going to be a bit of a bigger method, but bear with me. We prevent default and prevent or stop propagation. This usually prevents you from redirecting or having the right-click menu appear, etc. That's what these two usually mean. In this case, this handles preventing the right-click event, right? It then gets the to-do ID, and it toggles the visibility based on the existence of that to-do ID. So if the to-do ID exists, it means we've clicked on a to-do item in the table. If the ID does not exist, it means we've clicked on the header, in which case we have to hide the menu options. Finally, we position the menu, and then we remove the hidden class on the context menu, which makes it appear. So you can think of it like this. We get rid of this hidden class, come over here, refresh, and now our context menu is here. You can see our styling has already taken place from the CSS. Looks pretty cool, and our icons, but none of this will actually, well, I guess this will actually take us somewhere, but the show, the edit, the delete won't really do anything right now. Let's go ahead real quick. Let's add in our seeded data. Let's come into our seeds just so we can have something to work with here. I'm going to go ahead and create 10 seeded to-dos using faker for the title, description, and a random number for the check mark. I'm going to come into my console, do a Rails db:/seed, and then we can do a bin/dev again to start our server again. I'll come in here and I'll refresh now, and we'll see this appears just like that. So our table's working as well. Now, right-clicking is not going to do anything yet. So let's come back into our JavaScript and let's handle the rest of this. For the, for a lot of this, there's going to be a ton of stuff we have to actually do. So for preparing our to-dos, we need to call a method that handles updating the link targets and showing the menu options. Now, we also need to handle the hide menu options, which is right here. which is going to be a separate method that calls toggle menu options. I tried to keep this fairly clean while I was writing this because I was planning on using this. But okay, what's our show menu options look like? It simply calls toggle menu options. So it's the same as our hide menu, but it just calls with the false as opposed to the true right here. So we're using some semblance of clean code, although it is a little bit extra verbosity, I guess, but you get the idea. Next, after we handle all of that, we need to actually start working on this stuff. So for updating the link targets, we come in here and we grab the to-do path, which is /to-do/ and then to-do ID. This right here, you could refactor. Maybe consider refactoring to use a stimulus value instead. Then feed the stimulus value, the to-do's path, right? Something like that. And we'll just add extra irony here. We'll do capital to-do just so you can see that. So we get the to-do's path right here, and then we set the to-do's path to be the show link. We put the to-do path in here for the edit link, and we do the same for the destroy link or the delete link. So that's what updating the link targets does. Next, we need to handle getting the to-do ID. We have get to-do ID, which is getting the clicked element, the closest TR to it, the data set, and the to-do ID. So again, when we have our index here, we have this data-to-do-ID where we're setting this up. That's what the right click here is doing. Now we can go ahead and we can handle toggling the menu options. So toggle takes in the hide, and then we just say this link.classlist.toggle hidden and hide, which is our Boolean value. So that is our true or our false. So it just toggles this based on whether it gets true or false, which is pretty neat. Next, we need to handle some ugly math. This is for positioning the menu. This is where we have to make sure if we right click near the bottom, it goes up just like here, so it doesn't flow off the screen. Or if we right click near the right side, it doesn't continue to go. Because if you see here, every time I click, the menu appears to the right of my cursor. If I click all the way on the right though, it moves to the left. So we need to do something similar where we offset it. We start by getting menu dimensions from a method called this.getDimensions. This one's kind of weird. I don't know a better way of doing this, but the reason why we have a getDimensions method is because the context menu is hidden, which means it doesn't have a width. So we have to get dimensions to get the width. There might be a cleaner way to do this, but we remove the hidden, then we get the width and the height real quick, and then we set it back to hidden. Now, you could also like alternatively move this off the screen, then make it hit or make it visible and then hide it again. I don't think it matters, but if you want to, you can go that route. Just make sure that after you move it off the screen, make it visible and hide it again, you then move it back to wherever you need it to go, right? If that's the way you want to handle things. But that's where this get dimensions comes from. So we get dimensions for the menu target, so we can actually have a width while it's still hidden. We then say menu target.style.left is equal to this.clamp value. Let me go ahead and make that real quick because we're using JavaScript. So clamp value is just clamping a value between a min and a max, of course, and it's just handling that. It's not the cleanest code, but it does what it needs to. So we clamp the event.clientX between the window.innerWidth and the menu dimensions.width. We similarly do the same thing for the height, except it's client Y instead, and for both of them we add px at the end, so this is saved as pixels. Okay, so that takes care of getting the dimensions and setting this so it's clamped. So let's finish up here. We have a hide menu. This is just a thing that takes in an event. It says if this dot should hide menu, then we want to say add the hidden. Now for hiding the menu, there's a couple different cases we have to worry about. This isn't the cleanest code. I think there's a cleaner way to do this, but this is what we got. For hiding the menu, it returns whether the menu target contains the event.target. So if you right click, I guess I don't, right here. If you click in this context window, this is considered containing the target. So here, when we say if this does not do that, what we're saying is if you've clicked and it does not contain anything in here, so you're clicking over here, that's going to be this condition. So if you're clicking over here, then this will be true. Then if the event.target is equal to the menu target, that means you're clicking in the menu itself. So you're clicking like over here, but not on a link. In that case, you can optionally make this close. If you don't want that, to happen, you can just go ahead and get rid of this. Then you can also set it so that if you're clicking on a link itself, it will close this, which is what this A is right here. I'm gonna go ahead and leave all of these. At this point, the JavaScript is completed. I'm gonna go ahead and hit Control-Shift-I after refreshing to make sure there's no errors. If I hit F11, I don't see the context menu down here. And then I will go ahead and there is actually a context menu here, which means something has gone wrong. I'm sitting here freaking out because there's a context menu appearing here and thinking something went wrong. And then I remembered that we came in here and we got rid of the hidden class initially. So that should hopefully take care of that. Let me go ahead and refresh. So there's no context menu right now. Cool. Let's go ahead and let's right click. That works. It makes this appear. We can click on goes nowhere and that'll make it go away. We can right click and click over here and that'll make it go away. We can zoom in. We can right click and scroll. That'll make it go away. We can right click and click in the corner here. That also makes it go away. We can click on goes nowhere, which is a link. That makes it go away. We can click on new to do. That takes us to the new to do page, which is cool. We can hit back. That works too. Let's click on alias right here and delete it. That's gone. To do was deleted. Cool. Let's click on this quibbly wibbly wibbly one and let's click edit. That seems to have worked. I'll change this to test and case. Click update, and then we'll go back to our to-dos list. So here's our test case. That also has worked. We can click on show, of course. And at this point, I think we've covered all of the cases for that. Let's go ahead and let's scroll in. Let's right click near the edge of the screen. You can see it does bunch up a bit, but that's mostly because I'm zoomed in so much. Maybe this will be better. If I right click here, you can see this is not going off the screen. It is maintaining some semblance of its form. If I right click near the bottom here, it'll do the same thing, where it keeps it off the bottom of the page. So we now have this cool custom thing that's animated, etc. You can of course make it so that if you scroll, you don't have this happen. To do that, you just come in here, you look for like the scroll listener, comment that out. And now if we right click and we scroll, it'll stay there in the screen for us wherever we right clicked. So that is it for this tutorial. Hopefully this was informative and helpful. I'm going to go ahead and add this to the GitHub repo. And hopefully I will see you in the next video.